Hello and welcome back to the I'm Only Human podcast.
I'm Africa.
And I'm Busara. Today we are talking about men's emotional support, or that's what how I kind of put it. I feel like this was an important topic. One, because I know that on our YouTube community, a lot of our supporters and subscribers are men, and also I just feel like it's something that is often overlooked in terms of society and gender roles and gender norms, and I feel like that I want to get into just how growing up in society, there's things that are often common and that are normalized, but those things that happen, I feel like it makes it so that men grow up to be kind of how they are in terms of shielding their emotions and not really being able to talk about how they feel, which often leads to, mental health issues, and as we talked about in previous podcasts, suicidal thoughts and so on and so forth. So that's the topic for today.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like what you were saying about how men, I feel like men typically struggle with their emotions as far as, talking about them and expressing them the most, because many of the male clients that I work with, they share a common story, which is when I was growing up, my parents, especially my dad, always said, okay, men don't cry, and men don't show their emotions. And I let them know that when their parents say that, or when their father says that, they're ultimately invalidating the way that their son is feeling, the way that their child is feeling.
Right.
And you've ultimately just stripped them of their childhood because you said men don't cry. Well, your little boy is not a man.
Yeah, and he's looking to be a man.
And
right.
And even if and even when he does become a man, you do not want him to be cold. You don't want him to be closed-minded. You don't want him to lack emotion, and you don't want him to be absent in different ways. And so what we do want to make sure that we are promoting is the freedom and the ability to be able to express ourselves effectively, so that way our trauma, our anger, our hurt, and our pain isn't putting us in a disposition when we move forward in our lives.
Yeah, no, 100%. Going back to, like I said, obviously we're not men, and and also as a person that I don't even date men, but just being able to kind of see, I know growing up and having brothers, I see the difference between how my father would treat a boy versus a girl, and even just in like stuff where kids would cry in general, like, okay, if there was something in the sport, or I know I mentioned that in the podcast before, like, how it's like, boys are taught kind of like, okay, you play sports, or you do activities kind of, and the little girls are taught like, oh, you have a baby doll, and like you'll get maybe baby dolls for Christmas, and kind of just like trying to teach and nurture that like motherly instinct, while men are taught just to kind of have fun, or just like do their thing
and roll around in the dirt.
Exactly. Be just live life, but then also when it comes to showing emotion, it's often just it's overlooked when it comes to boys. I feel like with little girls it's more so, okay, like what's wrong, catered to, but I feel like a lot of times with little boys, and a lot of communities, I don't feel like it's just the Black community, or just American community in society. I feel like it is all kind of races, cultures, well, there's only one race, human race, but cultures, and that type of thing, religions, and I just feel like that's where it starts. It starts, when you're a kid, and when you're looking up to the people that, that raise you, and seeing kind of how they treat you, or what's okay and what's not. And not being able to effectively learn how to talk and say your emotions when you're a kid, that's going to trickle over into adulthood. I know there's a lot of people that are maybe like still kids at heart, but are just grown, you know. So that's like, if we really want to look at how we can change the way that these things are, and make sure that, you know, our men are being supported and do feel loved and do feel cared for, and do not just act out of emotion and rage and anger and so on and so forth, that we have to look at these things and see how it blossoms and how it grows, and we're planting the seed, you know, starting when they're young. So yeah.
Yeah, you know, I like that you said that, because as we tackle our emotions, I mean, I think it's good when we're just talking about them in general, but the emotion in particular that I feel like so many men do not deal with is their anger. And they say your anger is a secondary emotion, so that means that there's some sort of fear or anxiety that they experienced first, and then the anger just kind of came then after. And so one of the things that I know I've discussed, you know, with my clients is I ask them, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your anger? You know, or how fast would you say you get angry? And some of them are just like, oh yeah, you know, I get from 1 to 100 or like 1 to 10 really, really quick. And I said, okay, so how does it look? Right? Okay, well, sometimes I start yelling, you know, maybe sometimes I start throwing things or slamming things around. And then I usually have a follow-up question if I haven't heard this particular reaction. I'll say reaction. It's because it's not a response. It's an emotional reaction. And emotional reactions are when we act impulsively. So when we're not thinking first versus a response, if I'm emotionally responding, then I'm thinking about it first, and then I am 9 times out of 10, I am proceeding to problem solve effectively, right? So I just wanted to break that down. But I say, how many of you ever black out? And then they'll raise their hands, and I'll say, okay, what's going on there? And they're just like, well, I don't know. And I'll say, well, for somebody to get so angry to the point where they black out, I said there's something much deeper there. When someone blacks out, they don't remember certain things that took place. So it's almost like when they finally come to, if someone were to sit and ask them, okay, what do you remember happening? It'll be like they'll just see scenes, but they might not remember that there were other things that fell in place before the different things that they actually are remembering. And so what that is it's a self-defense
mechanism
that the brain automatically does, because the individual has been traumatized by something or someone in the past. And so this is why, like, for instance, if people experience something traumatic, they might not remember everything until later down the line or as time moves on. And it's like, oh, you know, I was thinking about when this, that, and the third happened, and oh, by the way, I forgot this also took place too. So it's, again, your brain can literally shut down, which is why people oftentimes experience being paralyzed or being frozen in the moment, or, you know, any other emotional, you know, reaction, because the brain is kind of like taken over, and the brain will try to protect the person so that you experience kind of going numb as well. So I wanted to share that.
Okay. And with your clients now, in terms of, I'm sure that, you know, there are some of them that say that they can't really open up. So what do they kind of, or have you heard anybody kind of say what it's like, or kind of what they went through in their childhood that like made them like make that happen, or make it so that they don't really want to open up, or, you know, that their parents may have said, or
So so many stories, I've heard, well, hey, Miss Africa, one of the reasons why I don't open up is because I was abused. And I have serious issues with trust. And so I just had this wall up, for so many years. And I don't know how to communicate or to connect with other people because I am automatically drawing conclusions on what I am seeing before I actually get the result.
Okay.
Before I actually see the conclusion. So let's just say, for instance, okay, well, I see somebody, they seem kind, they seem genuine, but, there's no such thing as good people because my past has shown me that people hurt people and that, people really don't have good intentions, or people will try to lure you in. They'll try to trick you. And so the only way that I can avoid all that is to just kind of, keep people from afar, or just close people out or isolate. And so that's how I protect myself. But we realize often that the barricades that we have found ourselves encapsulated in are the very barricades that we have created, that we are then trying to escape because those barricades actually affect us more than other people. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I like that point where you were, just obviously all the points that you made I like, but in terms of when you said that trying to protect themselves, I feel like that is obviously, I want to say as Black women, I feel like we do have, we do have to protect ourselves as well. I feel like obviously Black men and, other nationalities as well, anybody watching us, but I feel like that is something that oftentimes men are always in protection mode in like some sort. And obviously, this topic being about men and kind of just society and how it is. I know that oftentimes that is a narrative that men push, that men have to be a certain type of way. But also I feel like it's internalized into the society too, where it's subconsciously the way that we look at a man or how a man is or what it's supposed to be. It's very ignorant at times and very toxic at times in terms of the way that is. And I think that also, it doesn't matter what type of man you may be or what and what you're okay with and the type of style that you have. I know that is something that you may have to think about knowing that this is something that's heavily judged or just internalized, like subconsciously. And just like little things, I feel like a big thing people talk about masculinity and femininity. I was talking to Mom about that the other day, that I feel like everyone has masculine and feminine traits.
Yes.
Everyone has masculine and feminine traits, but society has kind of put a box around, okay, if you're this, then you're masculine, if you're this, then you're feminine, and you can't be masculine and feminine, and you can't, and so with that, a lot of, I feel like men are not able to be themselves and truly who they are, just be themselves, like, and with that causes, okay, I'm kind of internalized, I want to keep myself at a distance, okay, now I'm gonna go off any, little thing, or I feel like you're trying to play with me, or I don't want anybody to think that I'm soft, so I really have to go off, even though I don't really want to, because, I don't want anybody to think, certain types of things. So, yeah, I just feel like it's, obviously I said, I just felt like this is an important topic to talk about, but it just, when I think about it, it's really just sad, because I know that, like I said, we all have and face adversity, but just the societal norm around it is just really, it really is a problem, and it's like it's gonna take a long time to kind of fix it, or it's gonna take the effort and people to change their way of thinking for it to be kind of changed, I would say, and even the slightest.
I totally understand what you're saying, and with the clients that I deal with on a day-to-day basis, I will say that I am starting to notice the change, that there are men who are saying, hey, when I was growing up, my dad in particular, or my mom in particular, was always saying, oh, men don't cry, suck it up. I'll give you something to cry about. Yeah, if you want to cry, I'll give you something to cry about. Or stand in the corner, I'm dismissing you. Or if you're going to cry, well, then I'm not going to do this for you, or I'm not going to give you that. And so I think that, again, just from what I have seen in my facility, so many men who have started talking to their therapists and opening up during groups, that they'll then say, you know what, ever since I've been here, I started to see how my unresolved issues have dictated the way that I've lived my life. And because of that, I realized that plays a part of the catalyst as to what even got me into the position that I'm in right now. And so now I have an opportunity to change things around and to adopt a different perspective and to really give myself a chance at life. Because the way that I have been thinking, the way that I have been, quote unquote, connecting with other people has almost been dysfunctional. Because again, I am communicating and connecting with people coming from a place of trauma and not coming from a healed place or a loving place. I don't even know what love is. I don't even know what peace is. And in my mind, because I grew up a certain way, I thought everybody must live like this. Like, for somebody to say, oh, you're not respecting me, like, oh, like, what do you mean? Like, doesn't everybody talk like this, to everyone else? Like, well, I don't know what you mean by that. And so some of the topics that we cover and effective ways to problem solve that we discuss in groups, that's foreign to some of the clients.
I was about to say, I think that a lot of men too, they look at that type of like, I want to be careful what I say in terms of like a lot or most, because I cannot factually say, plenty, but that is, it's looked at as like, oh, you're trying to work on yourself, like you're trying to do things in a healthy and communicate in a healthy way, like that's weird, like like I think that, like I said, it's a society thing where they put that on any normal thing or like a healthy thing to do. Sometimes for men that women do with at ease, it's like, oh yeah, like you do that, like you're weird, or you're looked at like you're less than, which is it's really, when we look at it, it's just what it is it's a possibility, and it's just a opportunity for people to just continue to be the way that they are and live the way that they are in ignorance and just ignorance, in terms of how they should be or what is a man or what's not, rather than being yourself. If you're a man, then you're a man, like that's not going to change anything. If you're a man, then you're a man, like, so being yourself is what's going to make you the best you possible. It doesn't matter what other people may think or other people may say. And I think that a man is like, someone that's
unapologetically themselves.
Sorry, we might have to put some cuts in there. It's like, nah, but yes, someone that is unapologetically themselves, okay, and that is okay in their masculine and their feminine energy or whatever they feel, and can lead or whatever. However, like I feel like that's what a man is. Not just, oh, you're always like tough all the time and you don't show anything, like that's a facade, that's obviously, that's clear that when you're in that hyper masculinity and you're just like, oh, you can't do this, that, and the third, that it shows that there's something wrong within you.
Right. And I really like what you were saying, because it goes right back to that saying, are you a lover or are you a fighter? And there are plenty of men who are fighters, but if I'm really going to be a fighter, then I have to be a lover too. So I have to be a lover and a fighter. And I think even our concepts about what love really is, that those are very, very different. And that those things and the ideas that we have about that tend to affect the way it is that we live our lives, how we see the world around us, and how we connect and relate to other people. The other thing I wanted to add is a quick scenario. I shared this with my male and female clients, but I remember sharing this once with the male clients as I was running a group with them. And I said, there was this guy who was in the streets. He was a hustler, trying to get the dollar quick,
gardener.
And that was just his way of living. And he ended up, doing 8 years in prison. And so while he was in prison, he kind of adopted a new way of thinking, and he started to change, his lifestyle, and he knew that he wanted to become a better version of himself. So he ends up getting out. His mom is so glad, to see him home. He actually went into prison when he was 18.
Wow.
And so, getting out, you're still young enough to just kind of start fresh and, figure some things out. And I also just want to put out there, it doesn't matter how old you are. If you believe that whatever is for you, then you're exactly where you're supposed to be. It doesn't matter what you've been through. So anyway, gets out, mom is super excited. Well, the word starts getting out around the community that he's come home. So one of his good friends from, childhood, contacts him, and he says, oh yeah, I heard you were back, let's just try to get together and hang out, since you're home now, we can go here and we can go there, and connect with everybody who, you kind of quote unquote left behind and all that other stuff. And so he's excited about this. And so he decides to hang out with his childhood friend. Well, they go out, they have a good time, and, then he ends up being dropped off back home. Well, some weeks go by, and of course he's trying to get his life together, so he's applying for jobs. He's trying to see what it is that he can do, for himself, and he starts to get frustrated because it seems like it just doesn't matter what he does, that the doors won't open, or that the doors will open, but then they'll get closed in his face. So again, he's starting to get a little bit frustrated. So his friend calls him and he says, hey, I want to know if you're interested in going to this back to school, block party. They're going to be doing like giveaways for children going back to school. It's going to be really, really fun, live music, DJ, all that other stuff. It'll give yourself a break. You kind of been a bit frustrated without or by not being able to get the job, or find a job.
Yeah,
so he's like, okay. He was like, all right, well, I guess I have been working pretty hard. I'll just give myself a break and step away a bit. So he gets picked up, they go to the block party, they have fun, they end up meeting some more people, and he's able to like reconnect with some old friends and all of that. Well, on the way back from the party, they get pulled over by police. And he's just like, oh, well, just, be calm, it's probably nothing, right? Be calm, it's probably nothing. So police, they knock on the window, they're like license and registration, and his childhood friend says, well, I don't have it. And so now he's just sitting there in the passenger seat like, well, wait a minute, what's going on? Again, trying to be cool.
Right.
Well, come to find out, there were drugs in the car, and there was a gun in the car with the serial number scratched off.
Oh, wow.
So now it just all looks bad, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, the police, they run the tags, the car is stolen. So now this guy has found himself in a position, he's just like, hey, wait a minute, I've been in prison for 8 years.
I didn't do nothing.
How could you do this to me, right? Well, because his friend, he never owned up to all of the stuff that was in the car. Not the drugs, not the gun. The car is just like, oh, well, the car's not mine. Oh, well, whose is it then? I don't know. The car's not mine. So he's not holding himself accountable for anything. And now his friend is just sitting there in this disposition. Well, luckily, after the police go through their investigations and they go through the entire process, he doesn't end up getting in trouble for what his childhood or so-called childhood friend did, right? But then when he went and told his mom, what happened, she was like, you were in prison for 8 years. And you have to be very, very careful and use proper judgment as to who you're spending your time with.
Yeah.
And luckily, you aren't operating off of emotion, because you also have had serious anger issues in the past. Imagine if things had gone left really, really quickly because of your attitude. So I want to just let you know that you too, have grown, over the years. And again, you just gotta use proper judgment and better discernment when it comes to people in your circle and who you're trying to connect with. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's a good way, story to kind of just lay that out. But yeah, I talked to a guy. I was on TikTok live, and a guy had came on. This was a little while ago when I had moved to California, and he was saying how he was with his friends, they're smoking, doing whatever, the person that was driving, he wasn't complying with what the police officer was saying, and they searched the car, and he was the only person that had something on him. And so he, just because his friend wasn't trying to comply, it could have been a simple thing. He's the one that got in trouble, and everybody else got to go. And so he was saying he was on probation, and that it was just showing him and it making him realize who I hang around, really does, does make a difference. And that's what it is. It's the people that you hang around are a reflection of you. And if the people that you hang around, they're getting in trouble and getting into things or whatever, then that's inevitable. If you're around it, that something is most likely going to happen. And that's why I know that also for a lot of times with men, it's okay, you listen to the rap music, the drill music, whatever. Not all men, but I know specifically for our community, and that's a manifesting that reality for yourself, and those that type of life, and so on and so forth, and that rapping is not, and some rappers, yes, they do talk about other things, but that's not making it so that you can effectively and healthily try to maneuver life in a way that wasn't taught to you for God knows whatever reason.
Yeah. And I like that you said that too, because it's interesting to me to see how so many people don't think that the things that they engage in are playing a part in how they live their lives. And I would say, again, you might not think that it is, but again, those things have influence. And at the end of the day, whatever it is that you're listening to, whatever it is that you're doing, but especially when it comes to the music, almost like being fuel to the fire, or it just adds to, your mood or how it is that you're feeling. If those artists aren't being impactful or influential on its audience, then they're cut. So the things that are talked about, even in the songs, that comes from someplace. Whether it was a personal experience or somebody saw somebody else go through something, that comes from someplace. So they're speaking about something that is real. And so again, however it is that I feel like I can relate, or connect, then ultimately, then again, it just kind of feeds, where I am, and it can affect, my mood greatly. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely. So I thank you guys for tuning in, and was there anything else that you wanted to touch on with that?
No, I think at the time, I think I'm good right now.
Okay. Got it. Well, we're only human. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
But thank you again for tuning into the I'm Only Human podcast. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, turn those post notifications on. Of course, always join the Twitch family. We go live every time that we shoot a video, so you'll kind of see early before we post it on YouTube. We thank you guys all. I know our family is growing. we appreciate you always. Okay, we thank you, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.